Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday, June 3rd. It is June. Okay. John Arvos is here, Washington, D.C. Hello. While you're all talking about the cinema. Excellent. Let me jump in on TikTok while I'm talking to you all. Here we go. Finally not orange for once on TikTok. That's always a thrill. Oh, my. All right. What is going on? Hi, Becca. Don't mean to interrupt your discussion all of y'all are having there. Manda Bear, first on TikTok, followed by Pale Rose. Hello, guys. Oh, let me get my mic on. Sorry, microphone, TikTok microphone. Can't forget that. There we go. There we go. Ooh, hello, everybody. Man, ooh, it's not that warm in DC today, but my apartment gets hot. Hi, England. Hey, everybody. As always, I know you all know each other on YouTube, but for the sake of anybody new, introduce yourselves if you would. Hi, Annette. Ooh, Annette has a fascinating middle name now. Ooh, added ethnicity there. Oh, fret not. I have added the T-shirt onto a board for the moment. So I've got to switch this again. Every night I've got to switch this on TikTok. Hang on. I didn't realize TikTok hadn't switched. Mirror your video. There we go. Now TikTok will be the right way. Oh, hey, Sweden. I just switched it. See? So we'll see how long it holds in there. I tried clipping it very well, so we'll see. Doug from Kansas City. Hello, Doug from Kansas City. I know, Facebook too. Facebook, LinkedIn, although we usually have like one person on LinkedIn. We usually get several Facebookers, although not always weighing in. TikTok, YouTube as well. The YouTubes are the big ones. Oh, yep. Oh, and thank you for the hat, Baby. And good to see Baby Shoe back. We're back to 6 o'clock for now, guys. I'm going to do Monday to Friday. We're going to do, since by popular demand, enough of you voted for 6 o'clock, so that's what we're doing. It was a little more evenly spread on TikTok, but on the YouTube crowd, it was almost 100% 6 p.m. voting. So, yes, our friend on exactly. We love our friend on LinkedIn. Exactly. All right, guys, I'm going to give this another minute or so for the TikTokers to come on. Hello, thank you. Always love my hat, Manda Bear. But yeah, we'll wait like another minute or two max for the TikTokers to come in, and then I will start right in. Oh, not always 6. Don't even start, Wendy. Don't even start. Yeah, but the weekend, as always, tomorrow I'll be doing 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, Frate, for that. Always do 2 p.m. Eastern so far on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday. Thank you, Smiley, for the today's topic is Ukraine, but lots of little news. I would say there's not big news. It's interesting, actually, before we jump in, but somebody was complaining on TikTok that I'm not giving enough updates of what's going on, like at the front. And I sort of thought about it and told them because there's not much going on at the front. I will give you the update today, but this war has clearly entered a new phase. And I can tell just from the news we get every day that it's not Fiji. Wow. Hello, Fiji. That may be a first for us, or I've not seen you there before. But I can tell the news is slowing down. And I mean that, thank you for the Captain Marie, that there aren't as big of changes every day as we had at the beginning. And I did watch Biden's speech. Yep. So, and we will talk about it, but thank you, Timothy. I appreciate that. Maybe one more minute for the TikTokers to arrive, and then I'm going to start, guys. All right. Another 30 to 60 seconds, and we'll dive in. But yes, feel free to say where you're all from. But yeah, no, I'm gonna start in a second. You'll see. But it is interesting. There isn't the kind of breaking news every day so much that we've had. Although there still is some good news, like people are even noting on TikTok, which I will get into. But we don't have as much breaking news as we normally do. All right. So as usual, TikTok has decided to make things difficult. So when we get to the Q&A period, you guys on TikTok can go to my profile and you will see where it says Q&A right on my TikTok profile. click that and enter a question there, because that's the best way to do it. The guys on YouTube and LinkedIn and everywhere else, you can just simply enter a question in the comment box and I'll see it. For super chat questions, of course, and super stickers, I will just thank you anyway, because that's just a gift. Super chat questions, I will make every effort to get to them immediately as my thank you for doing the super chat questions. And the what else was I going to say on that? Not sure what else I was going to say on that. I was just looking. Okay, you found me. Good. The chat does go fast on TikTok. They're quick people over there on TikTok. All right, guys. So let me jump right in. But as I said, on TikTok, when you've got questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box that you will find the Q&A link on my profile, because TikTok sadly got rid of the Q&A in the lives, which is very annoying. But let me dive right in. And then once I do about 20 minutes or so of the news, then we will dive into the Q&A, which I think tends to be the most fun part. And we hang out until, oh God, at least quarter after the next hour doing the Q&A. And then we hang out for another 10, 15 minutes anyway, just shooting the breeze. So today is the 100 days. It is 100 days of the war since Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. Interestingly, the Kremlin today, Putin banned basically any media from mentioning that today was the 100 days. And I guess the concern was obviously that this was supposed to be a 3-day war. They were going to go in 3 days. They sent these assassination squads in that were going to take out Zelensky, and they were literally going to take the country in 3 days. Well, now it's 33 times 3 days. And I think Putin was very worried about people, first of all, even noticing, thank you, Samantha, for that, people even noticing that it's 100 days already, but also the fact that Russia hasn't achieved any of its goals yet. I mean, Russia has a lot of land. As somebody just said on TikTok, they've got 20% of Ukraine, but none of their strategic goals that they claim to be going in for. Remember the de-enzification. They were going to overthrow Zelensky. They were going to basically, he wanted to grab the whole country and make it part of Russia. Anyway, that was just sort of an interesting little aside that they banned the media outlets from even mentioning the 100 days. I thought that was kind of funny. One big piece of news today is the general that was put in charge of the war. And mind you, he was put in charge of the war like 6 weeks ago or so, max, maybe 8. I don't think it was 8. I think it was about 6 weeks ago. General Alexander Dvornikov. And you may remember he's the butcher of Syria. He was the guy, the Russian, who was behind all the horrific war crimes in Syria. Well, he's gone. He got sacked already, and he's only been 6 weeks on the job. Now, you may recall that what was going on was, like, the first 6 weeks of the war was a disaster. Of course, you know it was a disaster, but you may not have realized that Putin didn't have one general in charge of the war. He had like 20 generals, not even like. He had 20 generals in charge of the war. As you know, Ukraine killed like 12 of them, which didn't really help, but there was no one person who was coordinating everything. So Putin picks Dvornikov to be the guy who's going to coordinate everything. And he's the butcher of Syria, very scary. So this is going to be, thank you, Lisa, he's going to be the big guy to pull everything together. Well, Dvornikov's gone. Nobody knows why, but we could take a guess as to why. Thank you, Borderline, for the origami. And it's not clear, not clear. We know who's taking over, but we don't know a lot about the guy. The guy taking over is General Gennady Zhidko. He's the former commander of the Eastern Military District, and he's Russia's deputy defense minister for military and political affairs. Who the hell knows? In any case, not a good sign for the Russians that they're sacking their top general yet again, because it keeps them in turmoil, and turmoil is good for the Ukrainians because it means the Russians are not going to be doing as good a job. Also doesn't help for morale that you keep seeing the higher ups either get killed or keep getting sacked, because it sends you the message as one of the lower guys that this isn't working. This isn't working. They know it's not working. Doesn't instill a lot of confidence for how they're going to save your life. So British intelligence. So let's talk about Severodonetsk. So the issue here is that the Brits have been the Brits. I've got some British intelligence to share with you guys. So we know the Russians have been going after Severodonetsk, and I'm not wearing my T-shirt today, but I did put my T-shirt on a board for now, so I will show you. So this is Ukraine, Severodonetsk, all the way over here, okay, in eastern Ukraine. All of this is, well, all of this at least is Russia. So Severodonetsk all the way east, this is the region in the east that Russia wants to get. More or less this, you'll hear about these, well, they keep saying, what do they call them? Separate. They're not separatists. They're nothing like that. They're terrorists that Moscow has been funding since 2014 to basically steal these two regions and make them part of Russia. Now, here you've got Crimea in the south, which Russia stole back in 2014. And if you remember from my earlier shows, I keep telling you guys that the Russians wanted to create a land bridge between Crimea that they stole in the south and these eastern provinces they want to steal. Well, voila, here's the land bridge. And if you look at the towns, you'll see names like Mariupol, Melitopol, Zaporizhia, Kherson, right? Towns that you've seen in the news, because this is the region now. Russia controls this. They control much of this, but it's still very contested what's going on there. Now, let me go through a little bit of analysis from different sources. British intelligence is saying that the Russian forces are achieving tactical success in Luhansk, which is the region in the Far East that contains, or right on, it contains Severodonetsk, which is the town they're fighting over, that the Russians have been achieving tactical success there. They have the momentum, and it notes that they should be able to take full control of the province in the next 2 weeks. Taking control of the province pretty much means taking control of that town, Severodonetsk, in the next 2 weeks. The Institute for the Study of War, which is a really good think tank that I talk about a lot here based in DC, that a lot of the defense types follow kind of religiously, they are saying the Russian forces continue to make incremental, grinding, and costly progress in eastern Ukraine. And the but Institute for Study of War says Russia won't have the ability to take the rest of Donbass after Severodonetsk. And what that means is Russia, there's two provinces. I say provinces, they're called oblasts, but for you or me, let's call them regions or provinces, or maybe even states, but let's call them regions, okay? Provinces, two provinces out there. One is Luhansk. Luhansk, Russia already controls 80% of it. It's the furthest east on the map, right? I'm not going to draw this well, but more or less it's here. And then you've got Donbass. You've got Donetsk, which is next to it, so a little bit further to the west, maybe a little south too. I'm not so good on my Ukrainian maps, but you get the idea over here. The Russians control 90% of Luhansk. They will control 100% when they get Severodonetsk, but they wanted the other province too. They wanted Donetsk as well. And the combined two, and this always confuses me, but the combined two provinces are called Donbass. It's the Donbass region, which is why you'll hear about Donbass and Donetsk and all this kind of confusing stuff, right? In any case, the Russians will probably get this town in the next 2 weeks, maybe. If they do, they will then be able to say they control one of the provinces completely that they're occupying. That will give them bragging rights, which is fine. It'll give them some strategic advantage, not enough to justify all the manpower and all the vehicles they're spending there. And thank you, Poppy. What the analysts are saying is that once Russia's done getting this town, Severodonetsk, and another town that's nearby that I can never pronounce correctly, but like Lysychansk, once it gets those two, Russia's kind of done with taking over big chunks of Ukraine. They're going to have been totally spent as a military, and then they're going to be digging in. They're already digging in, but then they're pretty much dug in. The issue then becomes what happens next, because Russia's going to be digging in. Ukraine is waiting for some of the heavier artillery and some of the stuff that we are sending, including these newer rocket systems, and Ukraine will then start its counteroffensive, but it starts to get difficult because then you've got a much longer period of time that the Ukrainians are going to have to slowly go in and try to get their land back. And the Russians will have dug in. And I think this is where you're seeing some of the NATO angst come from. And I think it's not necessary. It depends on the country, first of all, right? Like, you know, the French and the Germans are not necessarily convinced that Ukraine can win this, period. Whereas I think the Americans are worried about how long this goes on for, because it's going to take a good period of time, we believe, for Ukraine to kick Russia out, if they're able to kick Russia out at all. And that's what I think has some of the people concerned. Thank you, Baby Shoe. Is whether there will be political support to keep this kind of expense going. Who knows? I don't think we're in any worse shape than we were yesterday or the day before. This is what we kind of knew was coming next in Ukraine. We pretty much know, and we may be wrong, because let's face it, we count Ukraine out at our what's the word, at our peril, because we counted them out at the beginning and they did very well. But the Russians, let's just assume conservatively, the Russians will get this town. They will control that far eastern province, or somebody said county. You could call it a county if you want to. The other one, they control about 50%. They're probably not going to get any more of it, probably. And everywhere else, they're digging in, and the Ukrainians keep attacking. And they're doing kind of small attacks. They're going to be going after their supply lines, everything else. A little bit, actually, one thing I should tell you, there was a little bit of a positive report today. Thank you, Marcy. Not confirmed, but I'm going to mention it to you anyway, because I finally have seen it mentioned in a few places. The governor of Luhansk, so the province, the county, whatever you want to call it, in the east of Ukraine, the easternmost, he's saying that today the Ukrainians took back more land and they now control 50% of the province versus the day before, which was more like, 50% of the province? No, 50% of Severo. I'm sorry. 50% of Severodonetsk. He's the governor of the province, but he's saying that the Ukrainians are now in control of 50% of Severodonetsk, when yesterday they were only in control of 20 to 30%. We don't know if that's true. Also, and thank you, Louis, for that, it's probably a good guess that this kind of stuff is going to keep going back and forth and back and forth. And you're going to have towns and villages like this going back and forth for a while, because that's typically what happens here. So I'm not going to get my hopes up on that one, but it was worth mentioning just to mention. Institute for the Study of War also said, and this is a bit of good news, that the Russian forces are struggling to establish permanent societal control in the temporarily occupied territories. Permanent societal control means basically getting people under control so that they're not just dropping bombs on all the Russians and setting up booby traps and things like that. What they said was, and mind you, Institute for Study of War is that really good think tank here in DC. They said on June 2nd that Russian forces are incapable of controlling local populations, enforcing the use of the Russian ruble, or conducting bureaucratic processes. So they've not even been able to get people to use the ruble, because remember, that's one of the things they're trying to do in these occupied provinces. They're trying to force people to use the ruble. It's not working. They also, conducting bureaucratic processes means basically running the town and running the county. One of the problems that the experts have been predicting when the Russians moving in here was, if they're actually occupying you know what? I was going to, 1 second really quick here while I look at this. So real quick here. Syndicate, did you relaunch the thing for me? Just checking here real quick. Hang on, because if we don't ask now, then it won't be. Oh, I think it is. Is it? Did you relaunch the page for me? I think it's working now, Syndicate. Also, you know what, Syndicate? Can you take the jokes offline? Because it's the same jokes. I didn't update them. But take a look. Yeah, I'm not convinced, but maybe it's updated, the page, if you would. Yeah, but conducting bureaucratic business. One of the big problems that people were saying the Russians were going to have is, once they take over these areas, these regions of the country, they've got to run them. I mean, you've got to have a regional government, and the Russians themselves will have to run them. The military is going to have to run them. And these guys in the military are barely trained to be military people. Thank you, Grandma, by the way, for the little crown. They're barely trained to be successful military people. They're sure as hell not trained to be bureaucrats and to be, running the local county and the governorship and all of that. So, again, good news in the terms of that things are getting harder and harder for the Russians to keep control in these different areas they're running. There was an interesting report in Newsweek today that I thought I'd mention, because I get a lot of questions about it from you guys, so it was worth bringing it up. Who knows if this is true, but Newsweek, I believe Newsweek talked to these folks, but who knows if what they're saying is true. But Newsweek talked to 3, they say, senior intelligence officials, American intelligence, who told them that, in fact, Putin did recently go for cancer surgery for advanced cancer. They called it advanced. And that in March, there was an assassination attempt against Putin. Obviously, he survived. But 3 different U.S. intelligence officials from different agencies, actually, or from different areas of intelligence, which is interesting as well, said this, which is interesting. Again, whether it's true or not, we don't know. One thing that I think Newsweek did a good job of reminding folks was, we kept getting intelligence about Osama bin Laden, that he was on the verge of death. And I don't know if we got that for like 10 or 15 years. Not 10 or 15 years. Maybe not 10 or 15 years because he was dead by then. But we had a long time of intelligence saying, oh, this guy's on his way out, and he wasn't on his way out. He might have been sick, but he wasn't on his way out. Saddam Hussein, there was a lot of the same kind of accounts of, oh, he's crazy and losing his mind and this kind of stuff. So when you're dealing with someone who's such a shadowy figure as Putin, it's not, you just take this stuff with a grain of salt is what I'm saying. We don't know, but it's interesting. And I thought it was interesting enough that Newsweek had the 3 different sources from 3 different sort of U.S. agencies, so to speak, was interesting. Another article going around today, Russian elites are saying that Putin thinks the West will crack first. And that's one of the things that is keeping him going. He believes that the economic pain is just going to be too great for the West. And one thing that's actually interesting about this, I remember we did a, thank you, Christy, for the glasses. We did a scenario in graduate school at Georgetown where we were trying to figure out, what the negotiating positions would be of Vietnam versus North Vietnam versus the United States. And I remember I was picked to be, I'm already forgetting who he was, but the leader of North Vietnam. And basically I was reading through the analyses that I was given. And what I remembered, and this reminds me of Putin today, what I remember specifically about it was the thing that stuck in my mind for the entire negotiation was the North Vietnamese leaders did not care about the deaths that were happening. They just didn't care. So they were happy to lose as many of their citizens as possible. The U.S. could do horrific carpet bombing. I mean, napalm, you name it. It wasn't going to work because the leaders didn't care. And it reminds me so much of Putin when we talk about this stuff, because now, granted, Putin has to worry a little bit, but he does. I mean, because it's possible somebody else might overthrow him. It's possible there's another assassination attempt. But when you're dealing with somebody who's running basically a dictatorship and running it well, meaning he's effectively in control of his dictatorship. Thank you, Christy. You do have to worry about what kind of pressure matters. And I think this is why, I will say this is why Biden and others said at the very beginning that the economic sanctions were important, but they weren't going to stop Ukraine from invading, and they wouldn't force Ukraine to withdraw. It's not like Putin would say, wow, those are really bad sanctions, I better stop the war. Because you're dealing with somebody who just doesn't care, and it's not a democracy. What is interesting is that, and by the way, I will say this to the mods, I am generally pretty lenient here, but anybody on TikTok, when we're talking about a topic that isn't even political, like Ukraine, who starts going in and saying, you're a Democrat, you're a liberal, this kind of crap, just ban them, because that has, I mean, literally, we're not even talking about that. We're talking about Putin and what makes him tick. And people are calling me a liberal because I'm saying he's a dictator. Those are trolls. Just ban somebody like that if we're having this kind of discussion. But generally speaking, if we're talking about guns and somebody says, I think you're on the left, if they're being civil, we can have that discussion. But when we're talking about Ukraine and Putin's, crimes and stuff, calling somebody a liberal probably means you're a Russian is what I'm guessing. But in any case, so just keep it in mind. The big analysis is just that Putin is looking at us and he thinks we're going to crack. And, he might be right. And that takes us back to what I was saying at the very beginning of the show. I don't know, probably some of you were new on TikTok since then because the number's higher. But I was saying at the beginning that somebody had mentioned to me in the comments on TikTok and said, gosh, I wish you'd give us more updates of what's happening at the front. And I told them there isn't much happening at the front. We're having little changes throughout the day, but not big changes like we had at the very beginning of the war. It wasn't like, oh my God, they're 10 miles from Kyiv. There's a 40-mile long convoy. Will it get there in time? We're not having those kind of updates right now. It is much slower. It's over a much smaller pieces of land, right? Putin wanted to take all of Kyiv, the capital. He wanted to take Kharkiv, the second largest city. Now he's going after a little town. I say little, I don't know. What's the population of Severodonetsk? I doubt my Google can pull that one off. Shall we try? Hey, Google, what's the population of Severodonetsk, Ukraine?
According to Wikipedia, the population was estimated at 905,364 in 2021.
Not a small.
City core with over 2 million in the metropolitan area. 2011.
Wait, is that
According to the 2001
900,000? 900,000?
Donetsk was the fifth largest
No. It didn't understand. It didn't understand. No, it didn't. It picked the wrong town. In any case, so much for Google. We tried. In any case, my point is that things are going much more slowly now. And that is part of the reason you're getting less news about it, because we don't have big earth-shattering news every day to share. So the main networks, I mean, I'm covering it because I'm, talking to you guys, right? And we have I think, a special interest in this, but the interest is going to be waning. And even for us, it's going to be dragging out. And then our governments have to keep putting money out. One figure I saw today was that Zelensky, the Ukrainians, are going to need $7 billion with a B dollars a month. And dollars, euros, it's about the same right now with the exchange rate. 7 billion euros a month, $7 billion a month to keep his economy going, to keep running his government, right? That's a big deal. And that's money that we're going to have to keep fronting every month. And eventually, will you start to see, opposition to that? I don't know. But if I were Putin, right? Putin's a dictator. He may be able to get away with holding out. We'll see. Meanwhile, in Germany, some new poll numbers that were very interesting. This is wild, actually. And mind you, polls can change based on how you ask them. But for Germany, this is kind of wild, folks. Listen to this. A majority of Germans, 52%, are in favor of keeping U.S. nuclear weapons in Germany. But listen to the breakdown. 40% of those surveyed said that nuclear weapons should remain stationed in Germany. Another 12%, which gets you to 52, 12% even advocated for modernization and increasing the number of weapons. A year ago, only 14% of those questioned were in favor of nuclear weapons in Germany. A year ago, 14%. Now it's 52%. I mean, so 52% may not sound like a lot because it's just over majority, but when it was 14% a year ago, the other number that blew my mind, 64% of Greens want the U.S. weapons to stay. That one, I'm kind of fascinated by the Greens. I will admit, as an American, we don't have a real Green Party here. It's run by a lunatic. They're not Greens at all. It's run by a pro-Putin lunatic here in the States. They're not the same as the Greens in Europe. But I think of them as environmental. I think of them as left, and they've been one of the staunch supporters of really Germany taking a harder tact on the war, which has been great. But for them to be more pro-nuclear than not nuclear, but more pro having nuclear weapons in the country than the public at large, that blows my mind. Very interesting. So what else? Lukashenko. Yeah. So our buddy in Belarus, and by the way, this is another story I'm bringing up because you guys ask about him a lot. So some of these I will mention just because it's quite, so this one's Belarus, right? Belarus, using my handy, thank you, Arifa, for that. Using my handy dandy t-shirt map, Belarus is up here and over here too, but basically up here, okay? This is Kyiv, the capital. Lviv, the other town you've heard of over here. Russia is basically this way, and Belarus is this way. Belarus is a Putin puppet. The people are good. People tried to get rid of the puppet a couple years ago. Putin intervened and helped a lot to keep the puppet there. The Belarus, he's now threatening to invade Ukraine. He's literally openly talking about it, about invading Ukraine. We know that he's been fortifying his border. It's not clear what's going on there. It's very strange. It's very strange. I still think that he's crazy. He's crazy if he thinks that his people are going to support him entering the war. He's crazy if he thinks his military can make a difference. I don't think it can. I think what's going on is Putin would very, very, very much like for Belarus to invade because, and again, I'll point this out, right? Oops, make sure I'm in the way here. The fighting is going on. Here's Kharkiv. So the fighting with Russia is going on more or less in this big chunk over here, okay? This is where Belarus is. If he invaded here, the fighting with Russia is not going on over here. What you are getting over there is cruise missiles and things like that, right? Sure, you're getting that. But the fighting's not. If his forces were to invade here, all the way over here, Kyiv, Zelensky would have to send some troops over here just to help take care of it. Well, even better, even if he doesn't invade, all Lukashenko needs to do is do what he's doing. He's fortifying the border. Today, he's saying maybe he'll invade. That forces Zelensky and his generals to say, well, this guy's an idiot, but just in case he might invade, maybe we should put a couple thousand troops or 5,000, however many by the border, just in case. Those are 5,000 troops that will not be in eastern Ukraine or in southeastern Ukraine fighting the Russians to get them out of the occupied lands. So I still think that's what's going on. I could be wrong, but I think Lukashenko would be crazy to invade. I think he's just trying to make Zelensky waste troops, and Putin's asking him to. There was more sabotage today overnight at the office of the I'm not going to say this right. Rosguardia. It's in English, it would be like a ZVG, so ZVG, Rosguardia, in a town that I can't pronounce in Russia, but it's basically Putin's Praetorian Guard is what people were calling it. And I have to admit, I had to Google Praetorian Guard because I've always heard the term and I totally forgot what it was. The Praetorian Guard was in ancient Rome, and they were a combination of the intelligence services and defenders, of warriors of Caesar and the Roman leader, emperor, or whoever he was at the time. So that was the Praetorian Guard. So the Rosguardia is referred to that way. Somebody overnight went with gasoline, spread it all over the front of the building, and lit it on fire. So at least there are individual acts of civil disobedience. Who knows? Country of 150 million people. It's a big country. Sanctions. I read something today saying that the sanctions are impacting commercial airliners in Russia because they're not getting the spare parts and they're not getting maintenance work. We had talked about before, at the beginning of this, meaning at the beginning of the war, the fact that right away Airbus and Boeing pulled out their support, stopped supporting Russian commercial planes, meaning Aeroflot, their commercial fleet. And one of them, I think it was Boeing in particular, had an online manual. So in addition to the actual parts, like they would provide the parts for the planes, they would need to replace something and they would give them the part. Well, the other thing they would do is Boeing had an online manual, and Boeing took the manual, basically took the keys away, because I'm assuming you access it via the web and all this kind of stuff, took the keys away so the Russians could no longer access the manual. So not only do Russians not have the parts for their planes, but they don't even have the manual for how to fix the planes. Supposedly, 70% of Russia's commercial airliners under Russian flag or whatever you call it are offline now. I did see that a different figure about the leased aircraft, because Russia did basically try to steal a bunch of leased aircraft as well. Let me do a quick look while we're just hang 1 second for me, guys. I normally wouldn't do this mid-show, but I feel like being helpful. We've been trying to help somebody who's blocked for some reason. We don't know why. Actually, Colonel Mustard, I've seen you before, but he's a regular as I recall, and somehow he got blocked on TikTok. So I am going in to there he is. All right. Oops. You are unblocked, Colonel Mustard. There we go. Sorry about that. I just felt bad. I wanted to unblock him. You are unblocked. Sorry about that. Not sure how it happened. So the sanctions for the airplane part's really good. Oh, this last little story. So the last little story, and then we'll jump to the questions. Actually, a couple parts of this, but about the grain problems, right? We know that Putin has been stealing Ukrainian grain. We know he's been blowing up farms. He's been stealing farm equipment. Basically, he wants to cause a famine in Ukraine. And he wants to cause a famine in North Africa and the Middle East to put pressure on the West to relieve the sanctions. And in a perfect world, if they don't relieve the sanctions, because Putin doesn't care who he kills, he wants to create a refugee crisis that then people swarm from the Middle East and from North Africa to Europe, right? And again, it causes a refugee crisis, political instability, all sorts of things. Well, the latest is that I mentioned yesterday and the day before, there was some talk of the Turks talking to the Russians and trying to figure out if there's a way that Putin would let grain be exported again from Ukraine. He stopped all the exports coming from the south, just totally stopped the exports. And Putin said, if Ukraine or Turkey wants to get rid of all the mines that were set, Ukraine had set a bunch of mines. Let's show you again. So Putin now, are we there? More or less, yeah. Putin now controls here's Mariupol, the famous Mariupol, right, on the sea. Putin controls all of this, and he controls more or less this here too. So what Ukraine's got is this, especially here, Odessa is key now. Odessa for Ukraine, over here, in terms of exporting their grain. But there's a lot of mines here, and you've got Russian ships as well that are threatening to, and submarines that are threatening to sink any Ukrainian ships who leave and try to export the grain. So Putin's saying that if Ukraine is willing to get rid of all of its mines that it's got in the water outside Odessa, protecting Odessa from attack, Putin promises he won't attack Odessa. And I mean, I read that today and I was just like, seriously? I mean, seriously? Like, give me a break. Give me a break. Anyway, very annoying. So that is it. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was a quick little story here that you guys had mentioned it on TikTok, and I do have it here. Kyiv's ambassador to Ankara, Turkey, said on Friday that Turkish buyers were among those receiving grain that Russia stole from Ukraine, and he's asked the Turkish government for help. We don't know whether the government's been involved or whether these were just sort of, corrupt Turks, unfortunately, but nonetheless, that's that. So, let me get here. Boom. All right. I am going to switch this to Q&A. You can, as I said, you can on TikTok, you can put the questions in the Q&A section if you want in my profile. You could also pose them here. I'm just not sure because I'm going back and forth. I should have mentioned I've got you guys here, and I've got YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter over here on my laptop. So when I'm going back and forth and answering questions, I may not see your question if it's scrolling here. Better chance that I'm going to see it on my phone. Now, real quick, guys, did I miss any questions here on YouTube? If I did, make sure. Hang on a second. So I'm looking really quick here. Okay. He's a troll. Okay. Thanks, Syndicate. I was wondering about that. All right, guys. Let me look at the TikTok Q&A and see if you guys put the Q&A there. If you did, then oops. And that would be Ukrainian Badass, who we also like, whose video just happened to pop up. We like her. Q&A. Come on, guys. Tell me you put questions in the Q&A. Hang on. Come on. There are no new questions in the Q&A. All right. They may be kind of mixed here. Putin's genocide in Ukraine. Thank you for the June notice, Brendy. Putin's genocide in Ukraine. He doesn't care about his people dying. Would that be considered genocide against his own country? Ha. Probably not, because, it'd be a couple things. It would be, genocide itself would have a very specific definition. So genocide itself would be something where you're trying to wipe out a category of people. For example, the NZs, as we call them, so we don't get in trouble with the filters, in World War II, trying to eliminate and kill all the Jews. They hated Jews. They had all these conspiracy theories, and they wanted to eliminate the Jewish people from the planet as a people. What Russia is doing to Ukraine, people believe, I agree, constitutes genocide, because Putin believes Ukraine shouldn't exist as an entity, that it's not a nationality, that these guys are not Ukrainians, they're Russians, and he wants to eliminate their language and their culture and their people. It's genocide. If you are being a lousy leader and letting your people die, that's not genocide, although you could have something, I guess. I'm trying to think, interesting question as to, Stalin in the 1930s. Is it a genocide? The great famine of the deaths there. again, it probably depends on what you think the goal is in terms of who he's going after. In this case, not caring about your people isn't really trying to eliminate them based on who they are, but it's certainly, as somebody just said, Greg said on TikTok, it would be a human rights issue. Yes, it would be a human rights issue anyway, because you're literally allowing famine to happen and everything else. But the world could put sanctions on you. I don't know. Interesting question as to whether it wouldn't be war crimes per se, but whether it's some other violation of international law, right? Because it's not a war crime if you're going after your own. It's complicated. In any case, yeah, it's bad, and it would certainly be a human rights violation. Yeah. I'm seeing people are asking, as always, the TikTokers are throwing in lots of questions. Definitely a human rights issue. Yeah, LaShawn is saying exactly. Now, of course, that depends what we can do about it, right? Whether the world could do anything about it. Paul, let me see what Paul is saying here. Escudero, there's a nice last name I've never heard before. You're responding to Clifton. I see. Prolonging this internecine regional conflict by supplying them arms, boost the death toll, and the damage to world civilization. Okay. You guys are talking about something very esoteric. Never mind. Never mind. Okay. I'm just gonna look at the questions here then. Questions. Do we know about anything about all the Ukrainians who were abducted to Russia? Asks Bonnie Lee. Thank you, Grandma. We don't. Zelensky raised the issue again yesterday or the day before, probably the day before. I'm guessing June 1st must have been the International Day of the Child or something like that. And Zelensky was talking about all the children who were abducted by the Russians. I think Zelensky said 200,000, but honestly, the Russians themselves already admitted it was 250,000 or even more. Zelensky's bringing it up again to keep attention on it, because I think the fear is that it's going to be difficult. I mean, this is something I sort of said before. I think it's going to be very difficult. And the problem is we don't know who Russia actually took, who they kidnapped. What are the names of these people? And if we don't know their names, how are we going to find them? Right? Let's say the war ends tomorrow, who did Putin kidnap? If they're in Russia in prison camps or somewhere, we have no way of knowing. If I give this example before, you move back home to Bucha or wherever, your neighbor's missing. Is your neighbor dead? Did your neighbor flee to somewhere else in Russia? Ukraine, excuse me. Did your neighbor flee to Russia? Possibly, maybe. Did your neighbor flee to Poland? Right? Maybe, did your neighbor die? Could he be in a mass grave somewhere? Maybe, right? And the same thing goes for the neighbor's kid. Let's say the neighbor comes home and they're missing their kids. Did their kids die? Did their kids get taken in by somebody else? Did their kids get taken to Russia? Could their kids even be in Poland? I mean, could their kids be in a grave? I don't know how we hold Russia accountable for the people it kidnapped if we don't know who Russia kidnapped. Because you could put all the sanctions in the world on Russia. We're never going to know if they're telling the truth. If they say, oh, okay, these are the last of the people, I'm turning them over to you or whatever, we'll never know. It reminds me, it actually is the same problem when you think of the U.S. with Vietnam. And we're still waiting. Some people believe that there are still U.S. troops either imprisoned there or the Vietnamese have their bodies and aren't turning them over to us. You're asking, basically, it's called proving a negative in sort of logic or whatever, where you don't know what you don't know. So like with Vietnam, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know if they're holding anybody else, but we suspect they might be. But if you don't know, how do you demand the person be released? And I fear that's the same thing going on here. I think it's going to be very difficult without knowing that there's family members over there, how we're going to hold Russia accountable. It's a mess. It's a mess. I mean, hopefully we can. Thank you, Lindsay, for that. Very much, actually. But it's a mess. Nordic Warrior is saying trying to find people who got kidnapped by Russia is going to be impossible. And again, maybe not entirely impossible because, for example, people have phones, everything else. I mean, at some point, somebody who got kidnapped and moved, for example, they mentioned that some of the Ukrainians who were kidnapped by the Russians were moved to Sakhalin Island, which is insane, in the Pacific Ocean. I mean, this is Eastern Russia, 10, 11 time zones away. Okay. I mean, craziness. Thank you, Annette, for that. It's craziness. That person, though, if they survive, and thank you, Annette Lynn, for the hat. If they survive, that person can make a phone call eventually. During the war, I have no idea if they can make the phone call now, but they could make a phone call back to their family in Ukraine, call mom, call the aunts and uncles, call somebody who they can say, I'm here. Maybe, well, the problem is if you're on Sakhalin, are there any foreign government officials there? Maybe if there's a consul, is there a consulate of Japan? Maybe. I mean, I'm just trying to think of ways you might go around that person at least could go, I'm here, I'm here, and I need help. But that's one person. We're talking possibly 1 million people the Russians stole, horrible, absolutely horrible. Impossible while Putin lives. Yes. The problem is that there's one of the guys or the guy being talked about as the possible replacement for Putin, were Putin to die of cancer or whatever, right? And I was mentioning his name yesterday, and of course I can't remember. I saw it today and I keep forgetting how to pronounce it. It's like Petrushkov or Petrush something. And he's one of the top guys, I guess, in Putin's National Security Council, or his Security Council, as he calls it. And this guy is a super duper hardliner. He's one of Putin's closest confidants. And he's not somebody who's going to be any better in principle if Putin disappears. So maybe. I did see the other question TH384 is saying about Alexander Dvornikov being replaced by the Russian Minister of Defense today. Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning. Dvornikov is the general who was the butcher of Syria and was the guy who was in charge of really bad war crimes and everything in Syria. But he was picked by Putin to take over the war in Ukraine maybe 6 weeks ago or so, maybe 8 weeks or so. Because before that, they had about 20 generals running the war, and they were doing such a bad job. First of all, it was stupid. They didn't have like one general in charge of it. They had 20. So they were always fighting and everything else. Well, then he puts the one general in charge who's the big badass, right? He's the big mean general who did all the war crimes in Syria. And now today he was basically fired and replaced by somebody else. We don't know more than that. It clearly isn't good news for the Russians. It doesn't look good. It clearly means the war isn't going well, right? If things were going great and, oh my God, they're making great progress in the East now and blah, 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 Putin wouldn't be firing. Putin would be saying, okay, we got to dig in for a while, blah, blah, blah. This looks like you're saying this is totally effed up, and the only way, and the guy you're talking to, by the way, right? This is just my guess, but Dvornikov is saying, look, we're screwed. All we can do now is dig in and hope that we can survive longer than Ukraine is getting weapons from the West, and that the West eventually gets tired, but we're screwed. After Severodonetsk, we won't be able to go after any more big towns. We're going to have to dig in and hope we stay, that Putin probably didn't like to hear that. Putin said, no, I want you to tell me how we're going to get Kharkiv. I want you to tell me how we're going to get Odessa. And he said, then I'm going to get somebody who can tell me. It's not good for them, haha. It also, as I said earlier, I think it doesn't really work well for the troops either, because the troops are sitting here and all their buddies are getting killed. They know 12 generals or so got killed. Now they know they keep losing generals. If I were a Russian soldier, I'd be thinking, well, you can't even decide who's going to run this war, and I'm supposed to believe that you're going to be able to keep me safe in addition to winning the war? Not great. So I missed a question, Syndicate is saying, from Brett Sykes. Sorry, Brett. And Brian Franklin. Is it, or Frankian? Is it a combo question? What happened with the Reuters journalists? I just saw... I don't know. I'm not up on it, actually. I saw that another Frenchman died and that something happened with Reuters journalists who were sitting in a car with the separatists, which really pissed people off because Reuters was using the phrase separatist again to refer to basically terrorists that the Russians have paid and probably imported from Russia. But I don't know anything about it. I just saw that like before coming on the show. I just happened to see that because I saw people complaining about the fact that Reuters was still mislabeling, and somebody was also asking, why is Reuters even like what was Reuters doing in the car with these guys? Although, you're embedded. I don't have less of a problem with that because you could be embedded at that point, I mean, the same way you embed with our troops or other troops. Oh boy, dog screaming in the hallway. Any additional news on the counteroffensive in Kherson? No. I've heard conflicting reports on the size and scope. No. Yesterday there was a report that the Ukrainians won back like 20 villages and towns, but I saw a larger analysis of that said, it wasn't a turning point of the war kind of victory. No, my dog's okay. That was the neighbor's dog barking in the hall. But it wasn't like a turning point in the war. And the analysis I saw said they kind of felt like that's going to be a back and forth. We get some cities, they get some cities. The one thing that is important about it, although this isn't really new today, this was yesterday, but they were reiterating it again today, Institute for the Study of War, was what the Ukrainians did achieve was in Kherson, where the Ukrainians were attacking in the northwest of Kherson. Again, Kherson is down south. Let me show you really quick. I'm always trying to get the map in the way here too. There we go. Kherson down here. Okay. Crimea, Kherson. So just up and to the left a little bit, to the west a little bit is Kherson. What did happen there, and that's sort of the upper limit of what the Russians control. When you get above there, it's Ukrainian controlled territory, but that the Ukrainians were able to get close enough that they are now able to threaten the main highway. And even if they don't control the highway with their artillery, they're able to hit anything on the highway so that it's causing a lot of trouble. It will cause trouble now for the Russian logistics. And the same problems, remember, the Russian had in the north when they were attacking Kyiv, and there was that big 40-mile logistics convoy of water, food, fuel, ammunition, machinery, all this kind of stuff. Well, same problem will happen there because they'll keep blowing these guys up. So that's the good news. But nothing else really. The only other thing, as I mentioned earlier in the show too, there are ongoing and increasing reports that I have several black shirts, Christy, but thank you for asking. It's a different one, but oh God, Christy, see what you did, Christy? You got me off of what I was saying about Kherson. I don't remember what I was just going to say. Christy made me forget. In any case, yeah, but that's kind of what's up. There's nothing sort of huge and earth-shattering that's up with that. Vlad is fine. I haven't checked in with Vlad in a couple days, but thank you for asking, Music Girl. I will check in with him tomorrow. I keep forgetting I've got to put that video up that Vlad asked. Do I think Ukraine can win? Yes, but it's I don't want to say it's the definition of win, but I am still not sure. I am still not sure how Putin pulls out of this, and it worries me. I do not think we should placate Putin. I do not think we should give him land and all that kind of stuff, right? Oh, I'm out of my mind. I did see your guys' questions, and I'm an idiot. Okay, sorry. Clifton, I'm seeing your question, and I totally, hang on. Let me just put these other ones out. Sorry, Clifton, you had one there. Okay, I'm going to pull it up in a second. I was looking at his question and then spaced out. Sorry, guys. I get like so into this, and when like one thing throws me, it throws me for a loop. About winning, yeah. Ukraine can win this. I think Ukraine can keep pushing the Russians back, which is great. The question becomes, at what point, though, is Putin willing to say, it's over, I can't win this? Or does he drag it on? I mean, they dragged Afghanistan for 10 years. We dragged Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years ourselves, right? I mean, that worries me a little. So when I say, can they win? Yes, but but winning eventually means getting all of their land back, and that eventually is going to have to be Putin or the Russians realizing they screwed up and they've got to withdraw. Could that be 10 years? It could be, and then we're helping them fight a guerrilla war for 10 years. It could be. Sorry, Clifton. I had even starred your question, so it popped up into a different box for me and then totally missed it like an idiot. So I apologize. Hang on here. So do you think France, Italy, and Germany, the FIGs, is that an actual thing? I've not seen that, the FIGs, will sabotage Ukraine's counterattack by refusing more aid shipments and strident yells for ceasefire? Yes. Oh, I think so. I think there's a decent chance. There's certainly a decent chance that that France, Italy, and Germany keep trying to have a ceasefire and keep trying to have peace. And the peace, haha. I think they don't think Ukraine can win. So they probably feel like, what's the point anyway? Why are we even doing this? Right? Why? They don't think Ukraine can win. They also want to keep their relations with Russia. So all the better for them to be responsible for pressuring Ukraine to cave. They want to get back to normal. They want to get back to regular trade with Russia. I mean, Macron seriously would rather negotiate and have peace clearly than anything else. Scholz in Germany, I think, is a sellout, but then he gets pressured and then becomes Mr. Ukraine must win. And then he holds the weapons and doesn't give any, And Italy, I don't know what's going on with Italy. We saw that the other day about their peace proposal. Oh, and I saw something today, which was interesting in the paper, saying that the U.S. ambassador misspoke in saying that the U.S. supported the Italian peace proposal. I was going off about that peace proposal the other day, and apparently U.S. government was not very thrilled with her. Not about me, but I mean, wasn't very thrilled that she had endorsed it. And apparently we do not endorse it all. So that was good to know. Harvey, and you'll get another hour of sleep tonight thanks to the time change too, Harvey. So yeah, no, I think it's the sanctions is going to be a problem. And the aid shipments and the military stuff is going to be a problem. Both, I think, with them. I worry about it. Feisty Unicorn, I missed you too. All right. I see Feisty. Yeah. What's weird is I don't. Weird. What happened to the Snake Island soldiers after they got away? Well, that was resolved a while ago, or at least in principle. Excuse me. We knew several died, but I don't know if it was 3 or 4. Several got taken captive by the Russians and got exchanged, I believe. I don't know whether the Russians are holding any anymore. But my God, that was 2 months ago now, I'll bet you, that issue was resolved. Yeah, I don't even know if any got away. But we know, I thought I saw 3 or 4 died. Thank you, Madeleine, for that, or Madeline. That's what I remember seeing, and I do remember seeing there were some prisoner exchanges too. So I think that's kind of the disposition of that. One got a medal, okay, yeah, but I don't think anybody's still there. I don't think so. Let me see. I know we are doing pretty well on TikTok today. For Friday night on TikTok. Thanks for joining us, guys. I mean, we're still talking, don't we? What time? Oh my God, it's not even 7 o'clock. Jeez, this is early. I think that I got through the other stuff so quickly. I'm scrolling back now to check. Well, you know what? I will look again to see if you guys are putting Q&As in the Q&A on TikTok on my profile. If not, fret not, because I will just look at your questions here. There's an interesting question. Why doesn't Ukraine target Russian cargo ships in international waters? Seems like easy targets. My guess is it might be illegal, because it's a civilian. Thank you, KK. That is one of my favorites. I like that. Thank you. My guess is this is just like my lawyer. I'm a lawyer, but I don't know the law of war. But my lawyer gut is telling me that military blowing up commercial boats is illegal because they're not enemy combatants. So you probably can't do it. Yeah, somebody else is saying, Waffler, as I call you, is saying it's illegal. That's what I would assume, because you're attacking civilians. You're literally attacking civilians, So that's a problem. Now, Russia doesn't care, but Russia doesn't care, right? But Ukraine's got to keep the coalition together. Ukraine can't be seen blowing up civilians, right? You know, all right, I got feisties there. Ukraine could do it and say it was Russian separatists. Yeah, but it's risky. I mean, right. Ukraine could do it and try to blame somebody else, but it's very risky. First of all, because American intelligence, who knows what we can see with our spy satellites? Thank you, Flower Lady. Who knows what we see with our spy satellites? It is way too dangerous for Ukraine to commit war crimes like that. That would be blatant war crimes and lose the support of the UN, lose the support of the international community. It's just too risky, especially since, I mean, Ukraine is relying to a very large degree on folks helping them, you know? Well, you can't touch them. You could touch them, but it would be really bad. The other problem is Ukraine doesn't have a navy. So it's not easy for Ukraine to go after the ships anyway. They don't have a navy. I mean, they've got equipment like that Neptune missile they used to sink the Moskva, but that was fired from shore. So they can go after other ships that are, just to show you. I don't have the exact location, but I remember more or less. So again, this is Crimea, which the Russians stole from Ukraine. The Moskva, I want to say it was sunk something like here, more or less, right? And it was shot from land around here. So, you know, that's about as far as, maybe a little further, as you're going to get the Ukrainians going after stuff. They are getting new missiles and things from other Europeans, and the harpoons and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how far they can shoot and everything else, but it's not like they have a navy that can go out to sea and hunt the Russians. They can hunt Russian ships in that area that's close to the border there, you know, that's close to the coastline with Odessa and everything else. What else? Beep, 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 beep. What would happen if something happened to Putin? Well, Jessica Kellogg asks, what would happen if something happened to Putin? A number of things. One, it depends who replaces him. Okay, no. First, who took him out, right? Does he get sick and die? Was it a coup? Was it a foreign power? Was it the US or Ukraine or some other foreign power that did it? And do the Russians know? Because if we were involved and they found out, it would be an act of war and we'd be at war and it would be very bad, which is why we don't take Putin out. It's one of those things where if you're going to do it, well, it's also illegal by US law. But if you're going to do it, you better make sure nobody finds out you did it because the other guys were going to be at war with the nuclear power directly if that happens. That's the first problem. The other issue is when you are talking about losing a foreign leader of a dictatorship, especially, you want to be very careful about what comes next. You want to know what comes next. It reminds me of the old thing about saying a lawyer doesn't ask a question he doesn't know the answer to in court. And it's kind of the same thing. You know, if you're a good foreign policy specialist, you don't advocate getting rid of a foreign leader. I mean, it's illegal anyway, but let's put that aside. You don't advocate getting rid of a foreign leader unless you know who's coming next and what's coming next. Would the country even hold together? Would Russia break into civil war where you'd have, you know, different parts of Russia fall apart and break into war? And if that happens, you know, you might say that's a good thing because we don't like Russia and they're a threat. But is it a good thing? They've got nuclear weapons. Would they use nuclear weapons against each other? I mean, right. These are the kind of things you worry about when it comes to getting rid of a foreign leader. So those are the things you'd have to wonder about what happens if somebody were to get rid of Putin. And as I said, one of the top guys they're talking about replacing Putin eventually is this guy on his Security Council who's a right-wing nut. He's just a nut. I mean, not a nut, but he's crazy Putin-saluting guy. It's not clear he'd be any better than Putin, you know? Oh, there you go. That's why everybody, thank you, Tyson Davis. That's why everybody was saying Bayraktar. That it is Bayraktar. That's exactly it, Tyson. That's very funny. And there was another, oh, that was Tyson's. Was there not a second one in here? There is, Michaela. Did we ever find the Bayraktar song with soldiers dancing with the English sub? No. Remember there was a great, there was a great version of the Bayraktar song that was done recently, but that version didn't have English subtitles, and there's other versions of it that I don't like as much that have English subtitles, but nobody put the two together, and they should, Too bad they don't. No. Oh, this is good news, Mario. Mario says, what about the gifted Bayraktar from Lithuania? So there was news yesterday on that. So Lithuania raised money online, 5 million euros, which is about $5 million. It's more or less the same, to buy a Bayraktar, which is the big honking cool Turkish drone that's causing a lot of damage, that the Ukrainians are using it to great effect. And it's very expensive. I don't know whether it's 5 million for the drone or several million and then the bombs, whatever, but they needed like 5 million to get the drone. And the company that makes the Bayraktar came out yesterday and said they were going to give the Bayraktar for free to the Lithuanians because they wanted the Lithuanians to use the money to help Ukraine humanitarian needs and everything else. Well, what the Lithuanians then said, hang on, I'm just adjusting my temperature in here because it's getting cold again. What the Lithuanians then said was, okay, then we're going to use some of the money to buy additional bombs for the Bayraktar. I'm not sure. I think, does it carry four? Who are our military guys and gals here? Does the Bayraktar carry 4 weapons? And I don't know what it carries exactly in terms of weapons, but they've got to buy additional ones because the Bayraktar can be used again and again and again, which is nice too. It's not one of those drones you crash. So they want to buy additional weapons to put on it. And those weapons, that's exactly what Fit MCTG is just saying on TikTok is correct from what I saw. It could be several $100,000 for new missiles. So they can use this 5 million maybe to buy, I don't know, 20 new missiles or whatever. Would be amazing. Absolutely amazing. So that's what's up with it. It's very cool. It was really neat. It was really neat that they did it. Good job for that company. God knows that Turkish company is, achieving some incredible marketing with all of this, aren't they? Thank you, Netlin. That was cute. Admiral Lysander. Will China take advantage of Ukraine and then make deals with Putin? I guess it depends what you mean by that. I mean, my concern would be, initially our concern was that China might side with Putin. We know domestically, for the domestic Chinese audience, they've been doing, thank you, Janice, for that. They've been doing a lot of, they've been putting a lot of propaganda, pro-Russian propaganda about the war to the domestic Chinese audience. There were concerns. Remember, originally, the U.S. was very concerned and clearly had intelligence on this, that we came out publicly and said, China, you'd better not give them weapons. And what was it? They were concerned about weapons. They were concerned about, medicine, other kind of, I'm forgetting, but there's other military stuff that we were afraid the Chinese were going to give them. And we've not heard anything since, which makes me wonder if the Chinese didn't kind of pull back and kind of listen to us, because the U.S. hasn't been complaining. If the Chinese have been helping, we would have known it. So I don't know. I'm not sure what your question was getting at there. Dragon Daddy, thank you for the paper crane. But let me leave one final thought there. Somebody had come really early, like maybe the first week that I was doing these lives, and said he grew up in China. He or she grew up in China, and said that you've got to understand the one thing China cares about most is the economy, and that Europe has the economy, America has the economy, Russia doesn't have the economy. Like when it comes down to it, yeah, they're allies with Russia to try to be a counterbalance to the US and everything else. But when it comes down to it, the economic relationship matters far more with America and Europe and China than does anything that Russia can offer them. Now, folks were talking about, there's 2 versions of the Bayraktar. I did not know that. The cheaper version is only $2 million. Well, hey, I wish we knew in time for Father's Day. That would make a fabulous fundraiser, doing a Father's Day fundraiser for Zelensky to get him another Bayraktar. That would be hilarious. 2 million. I didn't know that. Bayraktar can carry a maximum payload of up to 150 kilograms. It can carry 4 MAM-C or MAM-L missiles. I don't know what the MAMs are, but it's 4 missiles. Okay. Yeah, China's doing well. Russia's doing military drills too. All right. Let me actually, I will go look and see if anybody entered a question on the app, because I don't want to disfavor you all if you did, but let me see. Found it. Have to think of a question now. That's cute, Nancy. Thank you. You heard we're going to get attacked on July 4th. I doubt it. I mean, there's always a chance, but my guess is if anything were being planned, you wouldn't hear about it. You wouldn't hear about it. So I wouldn't worry about it. You just have to trust. Our guys have been pretty good about thwarting attacks on U.S. soil, with some obvious exceptions, but generally speaking, they're very good about it. Could a country invade Belarus and tell Russia to stay out of our business to keep them off Ukraine's back? I'm thinking the UK could have a go. Well, I mean, sure. Well, the problem you get is, there's Russian troops in Belarus. The Russians used Belarus. Again, if you think of, Belarus is here, Russia's here and going up. Russia's here and goes up further. The Russians moved part of their invasion was moving troops into Belarus and coming down. So you could very easily have Russian troops there right now. So you invade, Russian troops are on the ground. Are you engaging with Russian troops? There's too great of a chance. Your question may have been joking, I don't know, but there's too great of a chance of a war breaking out between the UK, for example, and Russia if the UK invaded Belarus to say stay away. Now, mind you, also, they wouldn't even be invading. What they would be doing is they would be probably bombing, would be my sense. You'd go and you'd try to just bomb all the Belarusian military, outposts and everything else so that they don't have a very good chance of going in. Now, the more interesting question becomes, if Belarus were to invade Ukraine, how would NATO feel about helping the Ukrainians there? Would NATO aircraft, would they be willing to do more vis-a-vis the Belarusians than they would vis-a-vis the Russians? I doubt they would, but there's a chance they would. It still triggers the threat, though, of you go after Belarus, and because Belarus is allied with Russia, you drag Russia in, which, we know our guys are terrified of, which, I don't disagree with them. Yes, well, yes. Another question. I'm getting hungry. I had a little snack before, but I didn't have a full dinner before. I'm getting hungry, guys, but for you, I stay more minutes. Can Ukraine, you guys are vicious. You're like little Machiavellian people with these questions. Can Ukraine take the deal to unmine the sea and then attack Russia anyway? Russia breaks the deals all the time. Yes, they can. So, my suspicion is that, excuse me, I'm yawning. Somebody wrote map time in the comments, and I thought you wrote nap time, and you got me thinking of my yawning again. Again, my suspicion is Ukraine is trying to be the good one here. So they're trying to be the one that's not, making things up and lying and everything else. But, they could, if anything, the likelier possibility, I think, is unfortunately that Russia's going to do something awful. That's what's going to happen. I did not do a recap yet, but usually we do the recap right at the end lately. I've been doing sort of the recap of what we talked about right at the end. Once I say we're done. I'm going to do a couple more questions and then we'll do that. Sasha's doing well. Thanks for asking. So let me look at more on here. The Saturday podcast with Yulia, I believe, has been postponed a week. I talked to her today, but they need another week to sort of get it ready. So that's going to be in a week from now. If the war continues in the long run, will the West liquidate seized Russian assets to finance Ukraine? That is going to be a legal question. In the U.S., it is difficult to seize the property because in the U.S., at least, you've got, and there they are again, all the crazy little lunatic people. In the U.S., we're getting rid of the crazy Looney Tunes spammers that Nathan's very excited about. I know. There you go. I knew it. Nathan was like, "Wee!" Saw that one coming. Yeah. Oh God. Oh yeah. So in the U.S. at least, what happens is that the government can freeze with an F the assets, but they can't necessarily seize them and take them as government property. You'd have to follow due process, which means you'd have to follow the process of the law. And under U.S. law, I don't even know what the law would say about this. I think we're married. Maybe you and I were looking at this before, I think. But, we'd have to prove some nexus between these people and the Russian government, these people in the war. But there's a legal process you'd have to follow in the U.S. And it's just not clear that we can seize Russian property in the U.S. and not see, we can freeze it, which we've done, but seize it and say, in other words, not nationalize it, but so to speak. Abroad is a different question. That's a different question, So whether Europeans can pull that off, maybe, I have no problem with it, but I was quick. Well, I happened to be looking at the comment right when it came on, and my first two thoughts were, oh no, and Nathan. So what do you do? All right, guys, like I said, another question or two. I am not Ukrainian. I'm just really into it. I've always been, the thing is, I have always been, somebody asked, am I Ukrainian? Why am I so, or not why am I so into this? They asked politely, but I have always had an interest in Russia and the Soviet Union before it. The Soviet Union certainly was an important source of evil in the world, and I believe that to this day. Russia wishes it were. I mean, Russia's got enough power to cause trouble, as we've seen, but also I don't like seeing people getting beaten up and killed. But as an American, I don't like it I especially don't like it when it happens to Europeans, because I have an affinity there because my family's Greek. So for me, and it's not logical, I admit it's a passion question, but I see things in Ukraine and it makes me think of my relatives in Greece, and it makes me think of my family. It's just, Americans, well, European Americans, we don't use that phrase because it's a phrase that's used by racists in this country. They call themselves European Americans, and it means they're white Americans. So it's not a phrase we use, but Americans of European descent, a lot of us are still very proud of our heritage, and we still have not divided loyalties, but we still feel like we have just that we're, I'm Greek and I'm proud of being Greek. So I see stuff like with Ukraine, and yeah, it pisses me off, and it feels closer to home because it's Europe. So it makes me want to do something to help. And it involves Russia, and I think Russia is a problem to the world, so it bears calling out anyway. I did not read Amber Heard's statement after the verdict. Oh, it reads like the next case of defamation. Oh my. I didn't follow the case enough, so I just have no idea. No idea. All right, guys, I'm going to look at one more. Well, no, the Soviet Union did a great job of opposing apartheid, and then they imprisoned half of Europe for 40 years, almost 50 years. Let's see what else they did, So, I mean, you want to talk about a great source of evil? You're trying to pick one. I mean, come on, that's a fallacious argument. They were maybe on the side. Frankly, the Soviet Union was probably against apartheid because they were allied with America. That's why they were opposed to them. I guarantee you, they didn't give a damn about people in that country because they were black. There's zero reason on the racism. The Russians, a lot of racism in Russia, bad racism in Russia. I'm not going to come yell about it because we've got big problems with racism here too. But the Soviet Union, I got news for you. Yeah. After what they did to Europe alone, they went into World War II. First, they had a treaty with the H-man. They had a friendship treaty with the guy. And when that didn't work out, then they went to war with our help. Thank you very much, Lend-Lease and all of that. So thank you for America helping Russia win the war, the Soviet Union. But then after the war, what did Russia do to thank Europe? Or not to thank Europe, but to Europe after poor Europe was ravaged by war? Russia stole half the continent, and they subjugated the people for 50 years. So, yeah, give me a break about how great the Soviet Union was. You need to take off your little, communist youth shirt and read your history and just see how great Russia was to people around the world. So, please. Woof. Up, and Nathan's people are back. So, I just don't know what these people think. They always come to the end of the chat too, which always kind of blows my mind. But it's like, oh, well. And by the way, well, whatever. Doesn't matter. They're banned. They're banned. All right, guys. That's it for the question. Now that I got to finish with that idiot, let's, yeah, they're anti-gay. They're horribly anti-gay too, way beyond anything we're here. Official government, federal, I mean, it's horrific. We did start at 6 today. We are going to be starting at 6 o'clock now, Monday to Friday, because I did a poll and there was way more support for doing that. For doing 6 p.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. Tomorrow we will do 2 p.m. Eastern. So let me give you the news roundup. We can do that. My recap, as we say. Ukraine isn't really losing slowly. Russia's got the initiative right now, but in one town of like 100,000 people. And after that, Russia's going to dig in, Ukraine's going to dig in, and Ukraine's waiting for better weapons to come from the West, which are coming, and Ukraine's going to start to hopefully push the Russians back and push them back and push them back. So I would not say Paris time is going to be midnight. Midnight, not tomorrow. I'm sorry. Tomorrow is going to be 8 p.m. Paris time. 20 heures. So 20 hours Paris time tomorrow. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, our time, which is 8 p.m. And I had to learn my military clock for Paris. My friends would always be like, 15 heures. Ah oui, on se voit 15 heures. And I'm like, 15 heures. 3 heures? And they're like, oui. I was like, okay. It would drive me crazy as an American trying to think of that clock, of the 24-hour clock, because we don't think that way. So it's very confusing. A 24-hour clock, to us, 1800 looks like 8 o'clock. So we're always having to go 1800, 6 o'clock. Okay. Very confusing. But tomorrow we'll do 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 8 p.m. Paris. So let me do the news recap. I'll even put on my and thank you. I am seeing the paper cranes, Kreiders. Appreciate that. Let me, one second here. All right. Oops. Wipe the glasses one more time and then we do this. All right. Today's the 100 days. It is the 100th day of Russia invading Ukraine. Putin, because he's really freaked out about having no good news, banned all the media mention of the fact that it is the 100 days today, which is really interesting. The general in charge of the war in Ukraine has been sacked. Alexander Dvornikov, the butcher of Syria, was replaced with General Gennady Zhitko. This was interesting because Dvornikov was given the job maybe 6 weeks ago or so after the previous guy had done so bad. So kind of interesting. British intelligence says that the Russians, let me summarize this because this was a lot of stuff together about the East. Basically, as I just said, the Russians may very well, thank you, Netlin, may very well take over the town of Severodonetsk in eastern Ukraine. Right here, may very well take it over in the next 2 weeks. They are spending way too many men and way too much machinery to do it. It pretty much means that they're done once that town is taken. There isn't a lot of other towns they're going to be able to be getting. Thank you, Schultz, for that. There aren't a lot of other towns they're going to be getting, and the Russians are pretty much going to have to dig in. And that's life. So for the Russians, and then the Ukrainians are going to wait to get more and better equipment, which is coming. And hopefully, that's my shirt that I put on a board. Yes. Then the Ukrainians will hopefully be able to push the Russians back. And therefore, it's going to become a much longer, slower war where the Ukrainians, I think, are trying to slowly push the Russians back from their territory. Beep, 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 beep. The Russians are having a hard time establishing a permanent control of the occupied regions, which is great news. Newsweek talked to 3 senior intelligence sources that claimed that Putin did, in fact, have surgery for advanced cancer in April, and he did survive an assassination attempt in March. Russian elites say that Putin thinks the West is going to crack before he does, that the West is going to crack under the pressure of the economic pain from Putin cutting them off for their energy, from the inflation and everything else. Germany, some new polling in Germany showing that people are more supportive than ever of U.S. nuclear weapons being on German soil. Big turnaround from a year ago. Lukashenko in Belarus is threatening to invade Ukraine, though I think he's bluffing. There's been more sabotage, this time in Russia at the Rosguardia office, which is the kind of Putin's own little security folks, in essence, his own guard. The sanctions, up to 70% of Russian commercial airliners are grounded because the sanctions are working in that regard. And two issues with regard to grain. Putin says that if Odessa, if the Ukrainians are willing to demine the sea outside of Odessa, and again, to show you Odessa here in southern Ukraine, right there. If the Ukrainians are willing to demine the sea in the area, the Russians will let them export their grain, and the Russians won't take advantage of it to annex Ukraine. They're lying. I mean, not to annex Ukraine, to go and to basically invade Odessa and take it over. They're totally lying. And that, I'm going to leave it at that. That is it. That is it. Actually, Yulia did have one question, although her thing is not until next week. Her panel, she's got one of the other TikTokers is going to be having a panel that I'm going to be, I think, helping to moderate at least one of the days. But she was wondering, like in general, for folks doing her panel, it pretty much has to be like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And she's trying to figure out in general, and just to ask you guys just like this, actually, I will ask you on YouTube, etc., just to put a comment in, and I will put up a quick poll on TikTok. But what she's trying to figure out is it better to do 2 or 3 o'clock on a Friday? This is Eastern time, US. So 2 or 3 o'clock would be, again, 8 p.m., 9 p.m. to Paris time on a Friday or a Saturday. Now, her concern is Saturday, well, not concern. Friday, she's concerned you won't get Americans if she does Friday, but she's still trying to figure out what makes more sense for that time. So, I mean, is anybody in favor of Fridays? I would just think Friday is going to be worse in general. I'm trying to, let me look one, and I want to look one more time and make sure those were the 2 options that she put out there to make sure I'm not screwing it up. I might be. Let me see. Yeah. She says weekday, the latest they could do is 3:30 p.m. Weekend, 2 p.m. Yeah. I think the same thing. I think a weekday is just not going to cut it. Friday. Somebody said Friday. Really? Yeah. I would just think for Europeans, it might be interesting to do a Friday, I mean, meaning for you guys, it's early in the evening, but for everybody else, it's not working so well. Yeah. So Mama Kendra would like it at least. Yeah. I mean, you guys are leaning. Yes. I mean, most people are working on Fridays. That's my thought. Yeah. Saturday is better. Okay. Just thought I'd ask. Yep. Thought I would ask. All right, guys. Then, let me hang out for a few more minutes just to hang, but I snacked before, but it wasn't enough. And I had some corn, but corn is not exactly something that's going to hold you over. I think I knew that, and now I really know it. So, rah. All right. What else? As I said, I'm not going to go long today because I've got a headache from not eating. Oh, I did eat, like I said, but it wasn't enough. I never like when it does that because then I get headaches for the rest of the day. Oh, what else? And then, as I said, so 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. Remember that. Move my mic down. I had corn. I bought fresh corn. From the store. So the panel will be on YouTube. She's still setting it up, so it's not for a week. On the cob. I bought corn on the cob. It was relatively cheap, so I bought several. They're very good, but it's not like it fills you up, but it's almost like Chinese food, I think. It fills you up, but it fakes you out. It makes you think you're full, but you're really not. So, and just so if anybody's still joining us, this is the part where we just hang out and chat a little bit, not about politics. So if you're wondering why I'm talking about Chinese food and all of that, thank you, Melissa. Sweet of you. What else? Just looking here. I'm getting really, I was trying to see if I had anything easy. I don't have anything terribly easy to eat. I have something, I guess, if I have to. I have something I can thaw out and throw in the freezer. I'm just getting too hungry. You have a cat who loved corn. Corn's pretty, I mean, corn's sweet. It's the kind of thing kids would like. And I've never given it to my dog, but thank you, Sandy. Appreciate you coming. I know Mexican. I do love Mexican too. Very much so. Pierogies. There's nowhere around here to get them. I'm in DC. I'm not in Chicago. I know I don't really get a migraine, but I get food headaches, which is kind of a little bit of a migraine, I'm sure. But yes, I get hungry. I'm going to need to make something fast. Hot dogs. Hot dogs I loved, but she is sleeping somewhere, the dog. I love hot dogs, but honestly, I stopped eating them when once I became an adult and started looking at the label, I couldn't believe how much fat was in a hot dog. I was like, oh my God. I mean, a horrific amount of fat. I love hot dogs, but a horrific amount of fat. But I do love a good hot dog, I will admit. Cheese, ketchup. I do ketchup. I know, I'm from Chicago. It's a crime, but I still like ketchup on my hot dog. I have not seen Mark Hamill's dog. I don't know. I don't have carrot sticks. Oh, that's funny. Nitrates. That's funny. That's like the wine, isn't it? As far as the problems. Oh, Vladislav from Ukraine is visiting us. Привit, Vladislav. Nice to see you. I don't know you, but good to see you. We have a Ukrainian in the house, guys. Give some love on TikTok for the Ukrainian from Vladislav. Just checking in. We're just finishing up, Vladislav, so be aware. We're literally just talking for a minute or two and we're done. I started about an hour and a half ago, so sorry about that. But there we go. We even have some sunflowers on TikTok for you as well. That's sweet. Oh, all right, guys. All right, I don't mean to sign off, but I'm really hungry. I've got to go. It's also half hour. All right. Let's go, guys. I will say goodbye first to the YouTubers because you guys are pretty instantaneous. So thank you for joining. See you guys tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. I've got to buy bananas. I actually have to add that to my list of things that I can eat quickly and easily. It's funny. I go to the store, but I don't quite buy the right things to snack on. Thank you, Christy. And I should. So, all right, YouTube. I'm signing off on YouTube and TikTok as well. Once I see the bye-byes in a row, then I'll know you guys got my message on TikTok. And I will see you guys tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. Paris time. Thank you, moderators and everything else. And everyone who chipped in tonight with the super chats and the everything else, I appreciate that as well. And the super stickers and all the fun little gifts on TikToks too. You guys are amazing. So thank you. All right. Goodbye, you. Boom.